is to activate more individuals to start the climate journey and accelerate climate solutions. And it's so refreshing when you can talk about these things and all the table is engaged. I would say find the community who doesn't judge you, but encourages you to educate yourself, gives you the tools, helps you, build the skills to do something about it if you really want to change. So we can, encourage people to start doing small things, local things, realistic things. Anger can help a lot, but it's not sustainable in the long term. You can allow your activism to be fueled by anger, but I think it has to be mainly sustained by the love that you feel, for nature, for people around you, for your family. I mean, there's a phrase that comes to my mind that says, do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better.
Welcome to today's episode, where we speak with Berenice, a climate psychologist. We'll discuss how she's going about building a community of passionate individuals working on climate change, and how mental health plays a key role in a successful climate journey. Enjoy the conversation. All right, we're ready. So hi Berenice, thanks so much for making the time to speak to us today. So to start with, do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yes, absolutely. So I am Berenice. I'm a psychotherapist from Argentina. I'm specialized in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and also compassion-focused therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy. These are all evidence-based psychotherapies. I qualified as a clinical psychologist in Argentina, and I'm specializing as a climate psychologist in London, in the UK.
Very cool. Climate psychology is something that's quite unique. Is it a subset of CBT or is it a different field altogether?
I would say it's a different field altogether. It's an emerging field and you could do so many things. You could do research, you could focus on your research, you can work on communication and frame, messages differently depending on your audience, their political tendencies, and so on. And you could also offer therapeutic support, which is the thing that I'm specializing in, and also education. So there are many things.
Very interesting. And I guess I just wanted to understand, what are some of the problems that people face when they come to see a climate psychologist? What are, some of the issues they're looking to address, and what's the journey like normally when you talk to someone?
Yeah, definitely. So in my case, I am helping people who struggle with eco-anxiety. And there's people who suffer with mild eco-anxiety, but also there are people who suffer with severe eco-anxiety. So depending on the case, you do different things. There are also a lot of, existential questions that arise regarding their career, maybe changing their jobs into a climate job, although every job can be a climate job. Yeah, sometimes there is a big yearning for making a bigger impact. So it's very different. And with therapy, it is recommended to do in a group setting, although it might not be called therapy, but there are a lot of eco-anxiety workshops that people like me offer in climate centers or online. And it's very important to, know people that they're not alone in their feelings and that they're not failing, because sometimes if you feel like, or someone recommends you a professional, you're like, oh, is this something am I failing at? Or, am I supposed to be coping with this on my own? And of course, when there is severe eco-anxiety, it is recommended to go to a professional. But I think the group setting offers are really, really important. And you would work with where they're at the moment, accepting that, helping them face painful, difficult truths with focus, and try to work with those overwhelming feelings. And there are a lot of coping strategies that people can learn. There are mainly 4 that overlap, of course, but there is, the emotional, the relational, the behavioral, and the cognitive. So you would recommend them, to journal about their climate journey. You would recommend them to get a mentor to talk about, their challenges and problems they face. you would recommend them to, let themselves cry, time to time. And yeah, really get talking about this with their friends, even if they don't have the same concerns. It's really important to talk about this and yeah, not isolating yourself.
Yeah. No, I think lots of interesting things. Maybe to start with, just for people who may not be as familiar, could you talk a bit more about what is this concept of eco anxiety?
Yes, absolutely. So it is also called, climate distress, climate anxiety, and it's mainly, it can take many forms such as anger, grief, guilt, frustration, hopelessness, also hopefulness. And yeah, a lot of contradictory emotions can emerge. And it's basically, yeah, there are very, discomfort feelings that arise from becoming aware of the reality we're facing and the reality that is that the things that are unfolding, the multiple crises we're facing in the world, and it really can feel like a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really really important to talk about that, and yeah, to focus on one thing that you think that you can change, and what things that choose the things that you're good at and you enjoy doing. So we can build a sustainable motivation from there.
Interesting. The other one I wanted to also address a bit is this group setting. So you said there's one way to do it, which is individual, the other way is group. But I think you're saying that a group setting is better for addressing eco anxiety. What do you think the reason is for that?
It's a very good question. I think, after the workshops that I facilitate, people want to keep in contact with the people they talked with. And I think, addressing that the sense of community is so important, and allowing, people to hear each other and really relate to others' feelings. It's very liberating and healing. It kind of displays this horizontal dynamic where we realize we're all in the same um, storm. As although we might be in different boats, different level of privileges, um, but yeah, we're all facing this immense, huge issue that very few people are talking about. If you're not, part of an echo chamber, as we call it. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, that is, I guess, a broader issue that I'd love to know your view about because it sounds from what you're saying that you speak to people who are on one end of this journey or the spectrum, who people who are very aware about it to a point where it affects them emotionally, personally. Some are able to channel that to a productive cause. Others find it debilitating and then need support to make it productive. On the other end, of course, I'd imagine many more people who either deny this or I think in the middle are just apathetic. So they know it's happening, but they care less about it. I guess, what are your thoughts about this? I kind of keep going back and forth because, of course, day to day life, most of us meet people across this entire spectrum. You want people who are apathetic and don't care to care more, but also people who are anxious to be able to use that productively. How do you sort of square this up in your head and in your work?
Right. So I guess there are two things here. One thing is
Yeah.
to help people cope better with the climate anxiety. And that will be, concerns about people's mental health. We're facing a mental health crisis due to the climate crisis. So we do have to take care of that. But in terms of behavior change and system change, it's been proven that eco anxiety really promotes, climate action. So it's not a bad thing in itself. It's just helping people not feeling overwhelmed about it, or really help them to prevent burnouts, because, people are quitting the climate fight because they want to avoid the feelings that come with it, right? So that's why climate psychology is so important. Um, and yeah, and at the same time, there's a lot of people who don't suffer from eco anxiety, and they are involved in the climate fight. So it's not that linear. And I do appreciate that people are not emotionally, they're not struggling emotionally with their climate jobs, and yeah, that's also allowed. I wouldn't say that we have to make people anxious necessarily.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you think the whole disconnect? So like you were saying, this dissonance where you have, of course, there's people who are extremely anxious and then they get to a point where they say, I need to disconnect for my mental health. But Sometimes I get this feeling that there are many more people who are aware about this but choose not to engage with it mentally because they know it's a disturbing area. It's something that we often feel helpless about because no one person can significantly change things. Everyone needs to make a small change, and so hence they're like, this is a negative feeling, I just don't want to deal with it. What are your thoughts of people who don't suffer from eco anxiety, but should be in some ways a little bit more emotionally invested? What's an easy or a healthy way for them to begin to get more emotionally invested in climate change as a topic?
You mean in terms of increasing their impact or
Or just increasing their like, I guess to start with, just increasing their emotional investment. Because like you said, if there's a bit of emotional investment, there would be some action. It doesn't need to be significant big action. It could be just small tweaks to your day-to-day life to start with. Less meat eating is a big example. So yeah, what do you think about, what are some ways in which you think people could begin to get emotionally more invested, but in a way that's healthy?
Yeah, well, I can think of community instantly. I think if people
Yeah.
want to create change in the world, they should expose themselves to communities who care and are doing things about this. So yeah, but I am really working hard to build a community who is supportive and accepting and are meeting people where they are. So yeah, I would say find the community who doesn't judge you, but is encourages you to educate yourself, gives you the tools, helps you, build the skills to do something about it if you really want to change. Not just the individual change, but, you know, working towards system change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also
Absolutely.
reminds you that you don't have to do things on your own all the time and you're allowed to take breaks.
That's actually super important, right? The group setting feeling, I was trying to put myself in that situation. And I think having a group would mean that you'd also feel less alone because you'd say, okay, I'm not the only one who's anxious about this topic. There are others who are anxious about it as well. And we can kind of bounce it off each other and vent in a safe setting where you feel less judged about thinking this is an important topic, which is quite cool. I'd love to also pull on this thread of community. So you said you're building a community. Could you talk a bit more about what this community is and how you're going about building it?
Yes, I am. My Greendom is the name of my Instagram account,
Yeah.
but it was a way for me to start presenting others, the organizations I'm involved with. Yeah, it's a mixture of things. Well, the idea is to bring people together from different organizations and offer different things. I facilitate women's circles mainly for animal rights activists and climate justice activists, but it's open for everyone really who want to begin their climate journey, who want to start being vegan. And it's a very supportive and encouraging community. And we don't talk about activism. I think not talking about activism is also activism. And I think we have to, offer these spaces as well where people can restore and pause and think about their daily lives, the conflicts that they might have in an interpersonal level, things that they might struggle with, so many things. Life is already hard for us to push ourselves to only focus on one thing that can get really overwhelming. So it's good to take care of the other aspects of our lives. So that place exists for women.
Yeah.
I'm also a city lead for Women and Climate. We aim to create a joyful and safe space for women to talk about climate. No climate experience is necessary. Again, it's a very non-judgmental space that you can join if you're curious. And through networking, community, and virtual events, the goal is to activate more individuals to start the climate journey and accelerate climate solutions. And it's so refreshing when you can talk about these things and all the table is engaged. And we want to create this supportive circle to encourage everyone to get involved in. And it's very good. And then I'm a Climate Fresk facilitator. As you already know,
Yes.
we have a beautiful community in London that is, ever growing. And it brings people and organizations on board on the climate transition and enables the rapid growth of climate education. So that's another thing. I facilitate free meditations on Sundays for any activists that want to get involved. That is at 11 a.m. London time. To bring all these people together. I'm also a mentor for the Resilience Project, and the goal is that we, through intergenerational mentoring, the youth perceive feedback and advice that contributes to a sustainable resilience change making, and we prevent burnout. On Monday, I met my mentee from Kenya, and I'm super excited about her climate journey. So these processes are life-changing, and they can be very challenging. So it's really, really helpful to have a mentor, to have a listening ear, someone who is, cheerleading you. And I facilitate the eco-anxiety workshops at the Islington Climate Centre. And I think that's pretty much it.
Already quite a lot of things.
I'm also actually writing a film script about eco-anxiety, but I can't talk about it much.
That's okay. You let us know when the film is finally out, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people really interested in checking it out.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope to finish it by the end of this year. And I guess it's, I'm trying to make a point that community is so important, and that, I think it's about, creating this culture of care and courage, because it's not easy to look at this reality and not feel absolutely hopeless and powerless. And the more you feel supported, the more you feel you have people around you who support your dreams, you feel seen, you feel heard. I think we won't be able to do much without that.
It actually speaks really well to a thought that sometimes comes to my mind, which is, the biggest tool against climate change is not solar panels or something else. It's actually the human mind. So when the human mind feels, safe, or feels like it has the ability or empowerment to go ahead and find solutions, there's so much more you can do. And so in some ways, all the work you talked about and this community is really recharging or creating that platform to empower the human mind to go out and find different solutions. You also mentioned activists. Are you specifically focused only with people who are involved in activism, or are your community projects also open to people in the private sector, in NGOs, government, etc.?
I have my private practice, and I help people who suffer from anxiety and depression. So it's not just eco-anxiety, and most of them are not involved in the climate crisis. But I think it's good to diversify. And I mean, in my personal experience, it's good to sometimes forget about the climate crisis and focus on other things. And I think makes my work more sustainable. But it really depends on everyone.
So I guess if you think about from the place you're at today, where you've got a lot of individual initiatives ongoing, all of which you've put under this Greendom community umbrella, where do you see this going from here? Like, if you think about your vision for the next 3, 4, 5 years, what do you want this to grow into in an ideal state? And why, maybe?
I love that. Thank you so much for the question. My vision is to maintain these spaces that I'm offering, these activities, and expand them. In fact, I'm expanding the women's circles to Richmond. And I would love activists of all kinds to find a space in Greendom where they can find joy and encourage and feel encouraged to cultivate joy in their own lives. Personally, I love hosting parties and organizing parties and going to hikes with my friends, and who are, I would say half of my friends are activists, are involved in activism in some way. It's also good to mix people around, and I have friends who only have vegan friends, and I love to mix people and maybe help people challenge their ideas, or maybe just focus on other things to and expand their love for humanity, no matter where people are at. And I'm passionate about helping people build happier lives for themselves. And I think it really helps with their activism in terms that, when we are happy, we allow to be our fuel instead of anger. Anger can help a lot, but it's not sustainable in the long term. You can allow your activism to be fueled by anger, but I think it has to be mainly sustained by the love that you feel, for nature, for people around you, for your family. Yeah, that's what I would
That's such,
say.
that's such a beautiful thought.
Thank
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really nice. I mean, I love it. It sounds so great. You're completely right that anger can burn you out, but love, it's rare that love burns a person out. So I can see how directing your energy towards love, in this case for nature and the climate, can help you sustain the fight for the longer term.
you so
Very
much.
interesting. I did have two questions just based off what you said. I think the one that comes out to me most directly is a lot of your work is focused around women. You mentioned women's circles, and what do you think the special role is that women play in fighting against climate change and things like that?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, personally, I know I come from a third world country. I come from Argentina, and throughout my life, I could see how women were discouraged to be courageous, to be adventurous, to dare to take place and dream big. So it is my passion to encourage women to feel that they are capable, that they can accomplish amazing things as long as they find the right community and they believe in themselves. So yeah, that's why I'm offering all of these places. I have English friends, but also friends from all over the world who might have experienced the same kind of struggles as I did. So I think I'm really passionate about it. I love women.
Lovely. And the other one I wanted to talk to you about was this concept of echo chambers. You brought it up in the beginning, but you also just briefly spoke about how you want to mix groups of people that you work with to ensure people see each other's perspective and are able to influence it better. I guess in today's world, outside of climate and even just in the more broader political spectrum as well, like this is a constant problem that people are facing. You can find your little echo chamber, live in it, you keep amplifying your own beliefs, and then it's hard to connect, or the gap widens with everyone else. What do you think is a good way to address this? I know that you said you want to mix people around, but if you think about doing this at scale at a global level, what's a good way to break down echo chambers and ensure people are actually seeing points of view that are not on their own?
Oh, that's the question we are all asking ourselves, right? How we can break the echo chamber. I think, well, I think it's really important to choose the words we speak about these things with. I think it's important to meet people where they are. As I said before, I think it's important to bring acceptance to the conversation and encourage people, you know, in their imperfect climate journeys. I think it brings the concept of, yeah, being an imperfect environmentalist. And there are so many things you can do, and you don't have to do them all, and you don't have to be perfect at everything you do, and you don't have to be an activist all the time. You can take breaks. You can take a few hours of the day. You can take a week off your activism. I think this we have to, yet to build long lasting activists, we have to slow down and really understand how our mind works. And we cannot rush people into the climate journeys. We cannot, or we shouldn't, tell people what to do. We can inspire them to make change in something that they're already passionate about and they care about. And maybe they don't even believe in the climate crisis, but they care about the plastic pollution. They care about not having enough green spaces in their city. So we can, encourage people to start doing small things, local things, realistic things, and yeah, get the support they need.
Yeah, that's that's also such a great idea, right? You ultimately want many imperfect environmentalists rather than a few absolutely perfect ones, because the total impact of many doing it imperfectly but still doing something to take it forward is actually a lot when you scale it up to such a big population. Yeah, it's a great thought.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Nice. Of course. Now that we've spent a bit of time, talking about your work, about the community, I'd love to also take a step back and just talk about you. How did you find yourself in this spot? Is climate change and this whole climate crisis something you've interacted with from a long time? Is it something you discovered, somewhere along the way? Was there a big moment for you? What's been your inspiration to work on this topic?
So I was studying psychology in Argentina when I won a scholarship to study in Amsterdam for a semester. That was in 2019. So I studied there to continue my studies in psychology and communication. And only then I became aware of the climate crisis. It was also when Greta Thunberg was, well, yeah, becoming a famous figure. And I was supposed to come back to Argentina after the scholarship, and I couldn't. I just couldn't look away anymore. At first, I was like, okay, this is something I can do apart aside from my job. But then, yeah, years passed by, and I was like, maybe I actually want to create this, climate psychology my job, or at least parts of it. I moved to London when I discovered a few organizations that I could take part of, such as the Climate Psychology Alliance. They are pioneers in this emerging field. I absolutely admire and I adore them. And it's such a privilege to work alongside them. I'm part of the therapeutic support group and such a lovely community. I'm also part of the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science. That's based in the US, actually. So I joined a lot of meetings online. And we created the eco-anxiety workshop that I facilitate at the Islington Climate Center. So yeah, I got involved in the first place with Extinction Rebellion and Animal Rebellion. But then for different reasons, I thought maybe I should just join an organization and work with how do you say fellow climate activists. And yeah, it's been a journey. I absolutely love it. I wouldn't do anything else, anything different. I used to think that I was going to be a family therapist or a couples therapist. But I guess, yeah, my priorities changed when I became aware of this massive issue that is threatening everything we know about, everything we love.
Yeah. Do you think even personally at your individual level, you basically began to face eco anxiety, which drove you to this? Do you think it was the same thought, the same emotional area, that the same one you're addressing now, that you felt first when you said, okay, I'm going to move away from family and couples therapy to making this my goal?
Yes, absolutely. I think I was always trying to make my life very meaningful.
Right.
That is something that I can say. But yeah, definitely, I became super eco-anxious. Not to the point where I felt it was affecting my daily life or my relationships, but it was definitely something that is always there. And but yeah, it's very important to focus also. I didn't mention this before, but psychology talks a lot about functional denial for
Okay.
activists. Um, and it helps activists feel allowed to rest and restore and focus on other things. But I do work a lot on that, and I invest in being happy so I can maintain my work. But yeah, I definitely eco anxiety helped me start my climate journey for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, I became aware of the climate crisis quite recently. Actually, it was like 5 years ago. But yeah, eventually you find things, you find your way around, and I think I'm in the right direction.
I mean, it's what you said, right? You were searching for something that had deep meaning. And of course, this is one of those topics that has tremendous meaning for the world, for basically every community that exists. There's a few. Every time you speak, I get a bunch of different questions in my head. I'm trying to think of which is
I'm loving this
okay.
conversation.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of which is the first one for me. It's bit around activism. You mentioned Greta Thunberg, who's an important figure in this space. When you think about, you know, activists, the typecast that I get in my mind is someone who's young and passionate, right? And there's this disconnect in my mind where it's always been that people often, not always, but many people who are involved in activism are young and passionate. Many decision makers are not so young and potentially a bit more pragmatic. You need both for the world to run. But have you seen this, in your work as well, where there is a certain age? I don't want to call it the age of activism, but like I said, a certain age bracket that's more prevalent in activism, or do you think it's kind of prevalent across all age groups? Maybe it's just my bias, so I don't know.
Yeah, no problem. I guess it depends on what your concept of activist is. In my perception, I consider activist any person who aims to create change, right? To challenge ideas in our society that have been naturalized, and society encourage us to feel like this is how we do things. But in my mind, even a teacher, a gardener can be an activist, can be considered as an activist, and it is absolutely valid. So I'm not sure about the age gap, but maybe more kind of disruptive organizations include a lot of youth in their protests or public demonstrations. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, fair enough. What's been the most personally satisfying moment for you so far in your experience of building this community and working in climate psychology?
Wow, so many. I arrived in the UK, and then shortly after COVID happened, so I was very much alone, and I didn't know how it was to feel lonely until I moved to London in a very weird time. So hearing now that people tell me that they found a sense of belonging to a community in London, it really makes my heart so happy. And this brings a deep sense of reassurance that I'm in the right place and I'm doing what I have to do, what I want to do with my life. And then I didn't mention this, but I also offer climate justice workshops at schools with Gen Earth. And yeah, mainly our vision is a world where young people can thrive in a healthy planet. And we bring, the concept of climate justice and the differences between equality, inequality, equity, and justice through a game. And then we help them build their own campaigns, and just seeing them, so aware. I mean, their questions are absolutely brilliant, and helping them feel this sense of agency, and the spark in their eyes, and their hope, and see how engaged they are. It's super, super beautiful to facilitate that. What else? Also, when people bring ideas at the end of the climate fresque workshop, is a really, really powerful moment. So yeah, it's for me, it's really about making people feel empowered and validated in their feelings, and encouraged to take climate action, but with a positive outtake, and really encouraging this concept of pleasure activism. It's
Yes.
not something
It's,
that
it's
can be uncomfortable. It's something that can, liberate you, can uplift you, and make you feel this deep, deep sense of purpose that eventually makes you happier, right?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, that is just one of the goals that everyone's chasing, right? Which is just a sense of meaning and purpose. So I can see that. If I was to turn the question on its head and say, what's maybe the biggest challenge you've either faced in the past or are facing today in your journey of building a climate community, what do you think that challenge is? What keeps you up at night?
I guess for this emerging field of climate psychology, the challenge is trying to reach as many people as possible in a short amount of time, just because we know people are struggling, and people don't know that there is help they can receive, and there are communities they can belong to and thrive from there. So I would say we need time, but also we feel in a hurry. So I guess managing that sense of urgency and doing what we can, it's a challenge we are facing. And also the therapeutic support kind of field within climate psychology, I think it's really, really important to take care of ourselves, because it might feel like a lot when we're supporting so many people with their mental health, and we really have to get that supervision and work on our mental health, whether it is with a therapist or getting making sure we have the support we need. Yeah, I think that will be things that we have to take care
Yeah,
about.
great. I think it's super important. To close things up, I just wanted to ask if you have any one piece of advice for, someone who's beginning to be more aware about climate and now wants to find the courage to do whatever they can. It can be in a community setting, like you're saying, it could be in the companies they work in, or, through government and NGO. What's maybe the first step for someone to really take, given that you took it quite recently, to get started on this climate journey?
I would say, there's a phrase that comes to my mind that says, do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. So that's Maya Angelou. And, let your dreams evolve. And sometimes you can get really stubborn with an idea and maybe you're very successful with it. But after some time, it might not work for you anymore. And it's important to allow yourself to feel tune into your feelings, tune into your heart, and really figure out if that's working for you, if that's sustainable, if it's making you happy, because there's a lot of activists who feel, they have to sacrifice everything for the cause. And that is not true, because that doesn't last long. And I want activists more than anyone else to be happy. These are the people I admire the most. So yeah, really, really pay attention to how your work is making you feel, because you can sacrifice some things, but not all of the time, and not everything. So that would be my advice. Mostly take care of your mental health, cultivate joy, and keep educating yourselves. Maybe there's something else that you can do that you'll be really good at and you don't know yet.
Ultimately, each of us doing what we find meaning in and what we're good at together will help us overcome this crisis. So, something more simplified for me is it's no one person's job to solve climate change, but it's all of our collective job if all of us lean into what we find joy in and what we think we may be good at. With that beautiful
Absolutely.
thought, I'm going to end this podcast. Thank you so much, Berenice. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I've learned so much, and I think I've taken away this increased importance in focusing on meaning and joy while I continue my journey. So I really appreciate that.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I enjoyed deeply this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thanks for listening in. If you enjoyed the conversation, please consider subscribing and tuning in to future episodes. See you around.